What's up, guys? Horror Man back for another review. So today we're going to take a look at the 1988 remastered Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures. So just taking a look at the packaging here, and you can see I do have all four. You got Mikey, of course, showing here, and I think the packaging looks pretty good for the most part. Very familiar art for the Turtles. The originals were more on like a carded packaging. This is what that original style packaging looks like. Now this is a re-release, but this packaging is exactly what it looked like originally. And then you can see this face here was reused for this packaging. They just flipped the image. But yeah, I do like the subtle nods to the original packaging, but I do prefer the card back. It's just a lot easier to store. I do tend to save the card backs, whereas the boxes I tend to just kind of throw away. Here's the Raph right next to that Michelangelo. And these are my two favorites from this line. I think they've done the best job with these two. And here's that Leonardo and Donatello inside their respective boxes. And these are actually going to be my least favorite from this wave, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Over to the side of the box, this is really the only thing unique about these aside from the front telling you which turtle it is. But you do get a little picture of each turtle with their new accessories and their bases that they come with. Over to the other side, it just shows you how you can collect all four to create a custom scene, and you do get some cool images of Leonardo and Donatello. Over to the back, you do get another shot of each individual turtle, but this time with their classic accessories and their new display bases. Over to the top, you get that classic logo. It says 1988 Remastered with a couple more pics with Mikey and Leo. And then the bottom just gets your UPC and your credits for this figure. So let's go ahead and start by taking a look at the head sculpts for each of the turtles individually. Alright, so starting with Mikey here, let's go ahead and take a look at that head sculpt. And for the most part, it's definitely very reminiscent of that original Michelangelo. You got that classic expression that you can expect, where he's basically got the gritting teeth on the right side, and then the left side it's just kind of just like green. That's just the way it was on the original. But yeah, I think for the most part, you could just tell what they're going for, and for the most part, it does look like him. However, if you're going to make something that's, remastered, usually that's better and an upgrade. And I'm not sure if this would be considered an upgrade. So I do want to show you that original Michelangelo, and this is going to be the 1988 soft head. So this is the original release. And like I said, these are supposed to be remastered and an upgrade of the original. But when you look at the original, the color, first of all, is much different. It looks absolutely nothing the same at all. But the big difference is that texture. The texture is what really kind of puts me on the fence about these figures. And to be honest, I almost skipped this entire wave. Originally, I only bought Michelangelo, and I told myself I would not buy anymore, but of course, I bought them all anyway. Price is $13, so it's very justifiable. But we have to think about, do these actually look like the originals? And after seeing them side by side, no, they don't. They don't look like the originals. There's just some things proportion-wise, and that I could deal with, but it's the color and the texture that really throws it off. So for that, it is a little disappointing. And here's like a 3/4 turn shot, and you can see definitely a little bit of difference. And then here's a side view of the left side of his face, and again, pretty much the same in terms of not really having like teeth showing in that side of the mouth or anything. And then over to the back, you can see the bandana's positioned just a little bit differently. Taking a look at Raph, he is definitely my second favorite of the wave. I will say a little QC note here, make sure to check the faces with him. I had a lot of trouble finding a really good face. I definitely have to look through a few of them. But the bandanas were a little crooked on some of those, so yeah, definitely be aware of that. But again, it's pretty much the same expression he had with the original toy. Not much different there. Just that texture is pretty heavy on there. So yeah, same complaints I had with Mikey, where the color's not right, the texture's a little heavy-handed. But I do like the expression here. And of course, we got to do our Raph comparison here. And like I said, the colors are a lot different. It's just, I think Raph's the one they've struggled with the most with kind of replicating what he looked like originally. His color, especially with the re-releases, has been so pale. Like, it's just, it pales in comparison. But no, it's just way too pale of a green. It just doesn't make sense. And then over to the side, again, it's that same expression you have for the original. Here it is from the other side of the face. And I do think this one's a much more faithful representation to the original head sculpt. The bandana is even on the correct side. And then finally over to the back, again, you know, he's got that bandana going the correct way. So, you know, this is definitely really close to what the original looked like. Just the color and that texture really throws it off. And here is Leo, the fearless leader. And he does have that very angry expression with the teeth gritting on both sides. And of course, he's got that texture going just like all the other ones do. But this is where things start to really kind of get weird with these head sculpts. And what I mean by weird is clearly you could see by looking at the original Leo here, they got the head sculpt wrong. The teeth are gritting on the left side for the original Leo, his left, but with this remake or remastered, they're on both sides, which is actually Donatello. The original Donatello had gritting teeth on both sides, so yeah, I don't know what happened here. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So either Playmates is completely out of touch with their own product, which would not surprise me at all, or they just wanted Leo to look different. Either way, it doesn't work for me. If you're doing remastered, you're doing remake, you're trying to make these look close to the originals but with improvements, don't swap the heads. So I mean, it only makes sense for me to compare this head sculpt to Donatello as opposed to Leo, because it's not the same head sculpt. So yeah, I mean, you can see the teeth gritting on both sides. You got the bandana kind of flipped up in the back just a little bit. And here's the left side of his face. Again, you got the teeth gritting there. Now, they didn't do the eyes like Donatello. He had a bit more triangular eyes. They definitely skipped that. But you can see the bandana definitely flips up in the back, just like the original Donatello head sculpt. And then over to the back, again, you can see the bandana is kind of curled upward. Definitely just a remake of the Donatello head. So last, and unfortunately, yes, the least, is Donatello. And I love Donatello, but this is not my favorite figure of him. Not only does the head sculpt swap bother me, but the QC issues on the head sculpt with him were terrible. I probably looked at 7 of these before I actually bought this one. And I tell you, some of these, the bandanas were so bad, his eyes were about on the side of his head. So here's the original Donatello head sculpt, and you can see it, yes, he has the teeth gritting on both sides, whereas this one does not. So just like the remastered Leo, I'll have to compare the remastered Donatello to the original Leo, because that's the actual head sculpt that this is. But yeah, you can see that Leo has a bit more of a sad expression. I will say I wouldn't have minded if they changed that just a little bit, but changing the way it looks with the gritting teeth on both sides, definitely a big mistake with Leo. And Donnie, I mean, I like that he has, you know, the teeth gritting on both sides. That's what we remember, and this is a remastered / remake. That's what it should look like. So yeah, I don't understand why they changed it. But you can see that wrinkle through the bandana is the same as the original. The mask kind of goes off to the side, to the right side, just like the original. Of course, the teeth are gritted just on that left side. And here they are from the left side, a bit of a 3/4 turn. And you can see that Donatello's eyes are just a little bit different than that original Leo. Here they are from the right side, and just like I said with the nose, I think the nose kind of slopes down a little bit. So it's a little bit bigger, and it like kind of is like squished, like it's kind of going down a little bit. Whereas this one kind of goes upward. It's a little bit more, just a different shape in general. And you can even see the right side of the mouth. It's a lot bigger on this newer version. So there's definitely some subtle changes to this original Leo head sculpt, and clearly it's not on Leo. And then here he is from the back, and you can see where the bandanas look about the same, where it's kind of just over to the right. And then looking at a couple of these side by side, you see Leo and Donnie here. The details in the bodies look pretty much what we would expect from those originals, but they do look really good. I do like the belts a lot. I feel like the letters are really prominent. The belts in general feel really nice, so I don't have any complaints with that. The bandanas and the elbow pads, knee pads all match pretty well. The shells, just like the skin of, the skin color of the different turtles, do not match the originals, so just have to get used to some subtle changes. Even the front shell is a little bit different color. But for the most part, I think the sculpting is really good. And then here is Donatello and Leo from the side. Again, really nice sculpting here, pretty much what we're used to with those original turtles. There are some details that get lost due to the way they've done the texture. Now, unfortunately, it almost looks like they took a toothpick to it and just, poked a bunch of holes in it. Or like they were wearing nasal strips and ripped them off. So we have this weird texture to it. And you kind of lose, like the originals had like those veins showing. You don't really see them as prominent in these because of the texture. And then here's another angle from the right side now of Donatello and Leo. And again, just really nice texture. I love the feet on these. They always had really good sculpting in the feet. And you can see they do stand a little bit better than the originals. Here they are from the back, so you can see the different storage for their weapons. And you can see the shells are really nicely detailed, and everything else has that texture like you've seen. Alright, and here's Michelangelo and Raphael. And again, really good sculpting overall on these guys. It's nice to see how I can get kind of like into this, arm down, legs, kind of almost straight up position. You're so used to them being pre-posed, so it is pretty cool to see that. But again, heavy-handed with the texture, and the colors obviously do not match the originals. Overall, I do think the figures look pretty cool. Here's a quick shot from the left side of the bodies, and again, really good sculpting on these two. They're definitely my favorite of the series. And looking at the right side of the body, again, just really nice sculpting going on. You could definitely see how Michelangelo's nose is just like Leo and Donnie's. It's a little big and kind of slopes down just a little bit. So I don't know, Raph overall might have the best head sculpt and like closest to the original. But yeah, like the belts on both these guys, the M and the R is really clear. The elbow, wrist, and knee guards seem to match the bandana pretty well. So overall, again, just pretty rad figures. And one last shot of both these guys together, and you can see the shells look about the same, but the storage on the belts is much different. We'll go over that in a minute. But yeah, pretty good from the back. Again, a bit heavy-handed with that texture. The articulation is a little bit better on these. You can move the head left to right, up and down. Arms go all the way out. You can get some articulation in the elbows, not too much. Legs can go out, but you have to move them to the side, which is weird. But you do get that knee bend and this goofy, you do get a swivel at the knee, but also a really goofy swivel at the foot. So better articulation, not the best, but you could definitely do better poses than you would with the old stuff. Alright, so taking a look at the accessories for Michelangelo. First and foremost, you do get this display base, which is pretty much the same for everything, but as you can see, some of these parts are actually removable. So the bottom just has a slice of pizza, some ooze kind of spilled, and then you get these 4 holes in the back, as well as some little pieces on the sides here. So with Mikey, you get this display base with this like ventilation system thing, and that doesn't actually peg in anything. There is like this one part that seems to fit best in my opinion, but in the picture it's kind of like closer to the front, so you could put this wherever you want. And then the satellite piece you can remove, and you could put anywhere that you desire, right by this like brick wall, but it's basically like a rooftop diode that you can create. But yeah, there is like peg holes in 4 different locations, so you can kind of customize this to make it look however you want, but it's a nice little addition. So for accessories, you actually get 2 sets of nunchucks, which is awesome, and they're real chains, which is a huge upgrade from those originals that broke very easily. Now they did go with the orange wraps on these, which for me particularly I don't like. I wish they would have just went with the white, like traditional like grip tape type of wrap. but I do like that these are real chains. And of course you can get them in that two-handed pose with just one of the nunchucks if you prefer. And then over to the back, you see it has the storage, and you can store the nunchucks in the back. Now, you do have to kind of get those nunchucks in there a little bit, but they definitely will fit. You can store them upside down or just like the way I have, so it's your choice. The new weapon that you get with Michelangelo is this like scythe, which is basically like two of them, and there's like this cord that attaches to them. So it's actually a pretty cool weapon, and I could actually see Michelangelo using something like this. So again, this is why I'm actually most happy with this character, because I do like the new weapon, and overall I think he's pretty cool, and there is some improvements like the nunchucks with the chains. And like I said, if you want, you can store those nunchucks different ways. You also get those classic style fist daggers with each turtle, so I'll go ahead and show them with Michelangelo. And the final accessories you get with Michelangelo are these two ninja stars, which also come with each ninja turtle. So I'm just going to show these here. But pretty basic, but very classic to the original turtles. Looking at Leo's display base, again, it's that same base we saw with Michelangelo. The only difference is you get this like skylight, and you can move that any which way you want. And then you also have this antenna, which you can position in any different, position that you want. So again, pretty cool display base. Got that same brick wall in the back. Here's Leo with his signature katanas, which of course are included with this figure. Now this one does have the blue wraps, just like Michelangelo had the orange wraps on his nunchucks. I don't know, I'm not huge on those wraps, but he does hold the katanas really well, and they do look pretty good for the most part. The swords themselves can be sheathed on the back, which is a really nice storage. It's pretty much just like we remember from the old figure. And if you don't push them down too far, you'll be able to see them from the front, which is really cool. That way you can actually hold all of his accessories for the most part. Aside from the swords, the fist daggers, and the ninja stars, you also get this new weapon. And I gotta say, this one kind of lost me. Like, I don't know exactly where they're going with this. It kind of looks like one of those Halo, like futuristic gaming type of weapons. A lot of these Ninja Turtles come with some wacky weapons, so I'm not like completely surprised we have this weird weapon. But it does have like a very interesting shape to it. You can see it has two handles as well. Looking at Donatello's base here, again, the same base overall, but you do get this like spinning fan type of piece on the top here. And you also get this air conditioning, which has some pretty good details going on. You can see the fan and like just some different sculpting going on here. It's kind of like one of those Monopoly hotels where it's just a hollowed out piece. For his first accessory, you do get his trusty bow staff. And I do like the length of this. I think it's better than the original. The original was a little bit short. But I don't like the purple wrap. I definitely would have rather had like a white grip tape on this. So I do wish Playmates would get rid of that idea. They've actually used this idea before in the past, and they got to move past it. It just doesn't look good. So, but overall, the staff is really cool. And just like the other turtles, you can store his primary weapon on his back. And you can see that it is a really big bow staff. Now, just like with the other Ninja Turtles, you do get a new weapon in the arsenal, and it's going to be this like double mace bow staff weapon, which I've seen some other people say that like it looks like he would hurt himself more than he would hurt a person or a mutant. But it is kind of cool. I think it would have been much cooler if they went with the real chains like Michelangelo. And it almost seems like it'd be more of a Michelangelo type of weapon. But, you know, it kind of looks cool. There's very limited positions you can probably hold this in. But overall, it's an interesting addition. And he does have the same daggers and ninja stars just like the other turtles. Alright, the last display base to look at, you do have Raph's display base, which has this kind of like a chimney in here, and you see like the door. But it's meant to be displayed right here. I do think it looks a little bit better on this left side. And then you also have this little ladder that plugs in on the right. Alright, and then finally taking a look at Raph here, you do get the size, which look really good. I do like the shape of these. The size are a little big, but they're not horrible, so I'm pretty happy with them. And you can also fit it in the original way, like Mirage Comics did it, where you can stick the side blade through the fingers, which is really cool. So you got a couple different ways you could hold these sai. And here's one more alternate pose for him holding the sai. And you can store the weapons on the front of his belt just like the original. And unlike the other turtles, he actually can store the fist dagger. And he does come with the other fist dagger and the ninja stars just like the other turtles. But I do love that he can store that. That's definitely right out of the original. And here he is with his new weapon. And this one's kind of weird. It's like a double-handed hammer. I wouldn't recommend using this one very much in terms of display, only because it's probably going to stretch out his hands way too much. Like the handle on this thing is really thick. For the first comparison, here they are next to each other, and you can see that they do scale really well. They're all the same size. And overall, I do think they look pretty cool next to each other. For your vintage comparison, here's Michelangelo next to that original Michelangelo from 1988, and then also the movie Michelangelo, the movie star, I should say. And this is a good example of when texture was done really well compared to putting all those like dots all over it. But yeah, this was a really cool texture. I think that's what they were probably going for with these, but it just didn't land with me. Here he is next to the recently released Sketch Turtle Michelangelo, also from Playmates. And again, this is another way that they did subtle texture, that they didn't have to do all these dots on it. I really do love these Sketch Turtles, and I think these look really good with each other. It's definitely a step in the right direction. For the last Michelangelo comparison, here he is with the NECA Mirage Turtles. There's a couple different versions. And then you have the 87 Toon, and then the 1990 movie, and you can see how much taller they are. Here they are with the Super 7 Turtles, and you can see Super 7 definitely got the colors a little bit better, and definitely stuck to those original head sculpts. In case you want some bad guys with these figures, you can mix and match the old figures, of course, and they will have a remastered Shredder eventually coming out, along with Rocksteady, but here he is in those Toon colors. And for the final comparison, here they are next to the Scareglow from Motu Origins. And he is a little bit taller than them, but he does look pretty cool. Alright, so that's my review of the remastered 1988 TMNT Toys from Playmates Toys. And overall, I am pretty happy with the figures. The price point's great. My only real gripe is going to be the color and the texture. That's the biggest gripe I have. But there is one other glaring mistake, and that's swapping the Leo and Donnie head sculpts. So that's one of those things I just gotta get past, and maybe, I don't know, I could do some kind of customizing to it, but you shouldn't have to do that, and that's definitely a misstep on their part. So a little disappointed with that, but overall I do think they're really cool, and I do recommend picking them up, especially since they're continuing the line with side characters. So thanks for watching my review. If you have a comment or question, leave it in the comment section below. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like, and please subscribe. And until next time, guys, see ya.